Hello and welcome. This is Michelle with PaperStampInk. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel today. Today I want to share with you how to make a simple and quick portfolio for your greeting cards. These make great gifts. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to invite you to subscribe below. I'm all about paper crafting, whether it's cards, craft fair items, gifts, 3D projects. I love it all. So if you don't want to miss out, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and you'll make sure you get notifications of future projects. So this portfolio was actually inspired by a video tutorial from Connie Stewart that I had seen a while back, and I did a little twist on it by adding some additional belly bands around those cards on the inside to hold them a little bit more steady. I just felt like it added a little bit more stability to the cards, and I didn't feel like they were going to fall out of the sides when that belly band wasn't on and you had them laying open. So here are the 10 cards that were made, and again I'll put a link to that video below. We did 10 cards in under 30 minutes, which makes it a great gift item. Not a huge amount of time to get that together, and it's also very economical on the use of paper. So another way I love that we used between this portfolio and all those cards, I only used 3 pieces of 12 by 12 pattern paper. So let's bring in our cardstock. You are going to need 12 by 12, and this is cut at 11 inches across by 9 inches down. And from that same sheet, you're going to be able to get 2 strips that are 1.5 inches tall by 10.5 inches wide. So again, very economical on the paper that you're using as well on the cardstock. I did have to bring in a scrap piece that is 2 inches by 11.5 inches wide. And then I cut a square out of some pattern paper, again another scrap, and used some stitch square dies. Having a hard time getting the camera to focus on that, but hopefully you were able to see that pattern. Then from the 12 by 12 pattern paper, we had these extra pieces I was able to get out. That first one was 4.5 wide by 5 3/4 tall, and these were 2 inches tall by 4.5 inches wide. Okay, so let's get those out of the way, and we are going to bring in the scoreboard and do some scoring on this project. I'm going to score first on the 11-inch side at 4 3/4 and 6 1/4, and I'm just going to reinforce those so I didn't feel like I got down in there deep enough. I'm going to turn that 90 degrees and score at 6 inches and 6 3/4. And that is all the scoring we need on the base of the project. Let's bring in those strips, and we're going to do scoring on those 2 1.5 by 10.5 inch pieces. And we're going to score those at 2 1/4, 3 inches, 7.5, and 8 1/4. And then we're going to do that second piece with the same scoring, 2 1/4, 3 inches, 7.5, and 8 1/4. Then we just have that last strip of the yellow. We're going to do that at 1 3/4, 3 3/8, and I had previously done some scoring on this and I got off, but that's okay. We're going to roll with it. And make sure we've got that at 3 3/8. That's the fold we're going to use. I'm going to go over and do 8 1/4 and 9 7/8. That little extra score line ends up on the back of the belly band, and I don't think anybody would actually even really notice it unless they were specifically looking for it. So I'm going to move forward for the sake of this project and go ahead and use that piece. So I'm just reinforcing my score lines, making sure I'm getting the correct one on there, and set that piece aside. And then we're going to bring in our base. We're going to cut out those 2 bottom rectangles and bring in my long-handled scissors. I find that much easier to do my cutting with the long-handled scissors. And we're going to fold those bottom pieces up the second score line from the bottom. And this is where I struggled a little bit. Make sure you do cut all the way up to that line, because I didn't, and when I did my fold, I tore that paper right in that corner a little bit. I'm sure you can probably see that. I'm folding those back so I can get to this piece that I want to cut out a little bit easier. We'll snip that off, and then I kind of played around with what was I going to do with that little piece. I started to cut it off, thought maybe I can save it. Maybe I can get it to stick down with some adhesive. After playing with it with my bone folder, I realized it was just too tiny, and I don't think anybody's even going to notice that. So I just snipped that little tiny bit off. And then we're going to fold those pockets. So we've got some nice creases there, and then the binding side. Now you could just stop right here and put your cards in, put a belly band on, and call it good. Just making sure everything looks like it's going to fit in there, and it does. Nothing more disappointing than getting everything put together after you've decorated it only to realize that something got off in the dimensions. So always take a moment and just do a little fitting, make sure it's good to go. So I'm just reinforcing the folds on those 1.5 inch by 10.5 inch strips. And those are going to be our bands that are going to go behind that pocket just to give more stability and make sure those cards are in there nice and good, so when we open it up, nothing falls out or slides around. Now when I do this fitting, I'm going to wrap it around my cards, but you could just do some adhesive on there and tuck it right in to the pocket and be good to go. But I find it just much easier to wrap it around the cards. Now, I'm not worried about the fact that I'm going to have that overlap in the front, because once we put it in, it's going to be hidden by that pocket. So nobody's going to see it or know that it's there. Put just a little bit of adhesive on there. We don't need a whole lot to hold that together. And then we're going to put some glue on the front and the back of that band. And one last fitting just to make sure I'm happy with where it's going to go. And probably the trickiest part for me was not getting glue all over my fingers doing this part. So I did pretty well. I was pleased. I'm not the neatest crafter always. So we'll just get that a little push. And I just find having the cards in there helps it all hold right in place, and I don't have to worry about where it's fitting. I did come back and make sure that it is all square, and it's going to have a nice 90-degree angle on the bottom there. We'll do the second batch of cards the same way. Just putting a little bit of adhesive on there. And this one, I got that little band a little too high. So you'll see when I go and put it in, it's poking up over that bottom panel. So I just had to do a little bit of adjusting. So something to keep in mind, make sure that that little band is down low enough that it's going to be hidden. I didn't want that little bit peeking out at the top, so just did a little shimmy. Great thing with the liquid glue, you can slide it around, and there we go. Now, if you don't want to decorate, we could call this done. Put a belly band on again, and we're all ready to go. But I brought in that pattern paper that was left over from the piece from making the cards. And we're going to just put those pieces on, the 2 by 4.5 inch pieces on those front pockets, decorate it up. And because it's all coordinating paper, it's wonderful. This is actually the back side of those little strips that go across the front of the card. The other side is that tone-on-tone yellow pattern, and I just flipped that over and used the other side. You could definitely, I could have definitely used the tone-on-tone piece as well. But I like those stripes. They're just a lot of fun. And then we're going to put our 4.5 by 5 3/4 inch panel on the front. And again, having those cards in there just gives us some stability. If I wasn't going to do that, it probably would have been easier to put it all on before I started assembling the box. And again, using the box to wrap that belly band around to make sure I've got a good fit on there, that it's not going to be too tight. I like to adhere my belly bands while they're on the project. And just put a little glue on both sides of that square because we don't want to adhere it to the actual base. That wouldn't make it very usable, right? We're going to take and put that pattern paper on the front, and we are done. Wasn't that simple? If you enjoyed that, give me a thumbs up. I hope that you find this a useful project and you're able to create a wonderful gift for somebody who's going to be so excited when they get these cards and the great portfolio that it's held in. So make sure until we meet again, you grab your paper, stamp, and ink and do something creative.